It's time to talk about the book for January, which was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This book has been such a ride. I'm a very big fan of dystopia. I'm a fan of post-apocalyptic novels, that kind of thing where it's kind of life or death around every corner. And this book was so different. It was so human in a way. I don't really know how else to phrase that. The plot of the book is basically a massive virus wipes out like 90% of the Earth's population. It's called the Georgia flu. And after society and the world has basically fallen, there's this group of people called the Traveling Symphony who goes from civilization to civilization, or like settlement to settlement, town to town, performing music and Shakespeare. I love this so much because it's a completely different look at like post-apocalyptic life. It doesn't focus on survival alone. It focuses on what do we have left after everything has fallen. Something about the book that caught me by surprise was how usually when I read something and we keep jumping from character to character, changing the setting, I get a little bit annoyed because I often zone in on one character, focus on them, they're my favorite, I care about their story. However, with this, we were jumping between so many different characters and I was invested in every single story. The timeline for each is so different. There's before the apocalypse, there's during, there's after, and then there's long after. And it's so interesting to see how all of these experiences align. There's also a very big theme of objects, because there are these thematic objects that keep being mentioned throughout the story. Only at the very end of the story you find out how all of them kind of get together, how they originated, who they came from, what they mean. What they mean is something you kind of have to suss out for yourself, but it's so fun to find out like all the hands they went through to get where they are at the end. Then, in general, I feel like this was a very easy read. It wasn't heavy, it wasn't too thematic, it wasn't too poetic, because sometimes you do get books that are a little bit flowery and too heavy on the poetry of the, you know, like the landscape and everything. I'm looking at you, Frankenstein. This was a very easy read. There's a lot of short sentences and small paragraphs, and it's very digestible because it's not so heavy that you have to dedicate time to sit through it. You can pick it up anytime, read a bit, and get something really cool out of it. Then I also just want to read like a little excerpt on the back, and then in the beginning of the book that's inside. What was lost in the collapse, almost everything, almost everyone, but there's still such beauty. And then the extract on the inside. The bright side of the planet moves towards darkness, and the cities are falling asleep, each in its hour. And for me, now and then, it is too much. There's too much world. There's just too much going on, there's too much noise. And this spoke to me, because then suddenly you delve into a world where there's not nearly enough noise. There's also a lot of mentions of the Shakespeare plays they do. For example, a lot happens during a play of King Lear. One of the main characters, actually two of the main characters, has a very strong connection to that play. I do feel like you can pick up a lot of the themes of King Lear throughout the book, just like tidbits. I'm a big Shakespeare fan, so the idea of someone traveling from town to town after the world has ended performing Shakespeare is such a cool idea to me, because it's like keeping the culture alive, it's keeping the stories alive, and Shakespeare is such a human experience. I fucking love this book, man! What do I give Station 11? 10 out of 10. A+. 5 out of 5 stars. 100%. I really, really loved this book. It was such a ride, but it was such a good story. I will go back to this again and again, and that's a big deal for me because I don't necessarily reread books. I read them once, I get what I got out of it, and I continue. This, I feel like I can get so much more out of it. There are so many secrets and chunks and lessons I can learn. Plus there's like a whole list of possible questions for discussion at the back, which is like kind of cool. This tells me that I could potentially do this with an English class one day and get something cool out of it. So thanks for watching this. Do go give this a read. I love it, and I'm sure you will too if you're a fan of like dystopia and post-apocalypse and the human experience. If you're a fan of the human experience, you're gonna be a fan of this book. Thank you. Bye.